Hello there! I hope you're having an amazing day and that you're ready to master another topic about Rust. Today, we are going to broaden our sight about keywords. I hope you're feeling ready! I think you already know what is going to be our first topic for the day. Of course, that is going to be what are keywords in basically every programming language out there. So, keywords are specific sets of character that have to be put in a specific order, and when put in that specific order, they present a significant meaning to our compiler. When compiler sees that significant order of characters, which we call a keyword, whatever it is, the compiler will know that it has to do something meaningful, something more than just going through some regular text. It also has to know what kind of a pattern it has to expect that certain keyword to come in. Some keywords are used as values, some keywords are used as conditional statements, some keywords are used for whatever purpose out there. So you have quite a few different types and meanings from keywords. And our compiler is already taught and ready to distinguish which keyword we are looking at, which keyword it is looking at, and it knows how to translate it into machine language. Everything compiles down to machine language because that's the only language our computer can speak. Also, have in mind that keywords are restricted to us programmers. What does that mean? That means that we basically cannot use keywords as identifiers for our variables, functions, or whatever, because keywords are reserved. They are reserved by Rust programming language, and we are not allowed to use them in our own desires or wishes to use them as we like, so to say. There is a workaround for this in Rust. You can use keywords as identifiers, but you have to use a wildcard before that. But we will talk about this functionality a bit later, so do not trouble yourself with it right now. Well, alrighty then. Now we know what keywords are basically. We have defined the term keyword. So right now I feel like it's a great time to actually extend it and teach you about categories of keywords, because we have three. And those are strict keywords, reserved keywords, and weak keywords. So now I feel like it's a great moment to actually talk about each of these categories and explain what the differences are and what keywords are basically included in each of these categories. The first category is going to be about strict keywords, and we're about to cover them, because strict keywords are the most common ones of them all. Strict keywords are basically already included in Rust programming language as we speak, and when compiler encounters one of these keywords, it knows what does that keyword mean, and it knows into what it should compile it down to. It knows the meaning of each of strict keywords because they are already implemented in Rust programming language. So we are already able to use them in our day-to-day lives. In this category, as you can see on the screen, I have listed quite a few strict keywords here. And you already might be familiar with many of these because many programming languages are sharing these keywords, are using the same notation for some keywords because we're already kinda used to these keywords and we know what they mean and what to expect from them. So the learning experience would be much easier after we have mastered them for the first time. Of course, we're going to cover almost every keyword that you see here on the screen with even more additional keywords that I basically did not have enough space to put here. So I certainly do hope that you will tolerate me and my weird sense of humor a bit longer in order for us to talk about all of these keywords. So it is time to talk about our second category, and that is reserved keywords. The question arises, what are reserved keywords? Basically, the answer to this question is reserved keywords are keywords that are reserved by Rust developers for the future use. Yeah, I know it might seem a bit weird to explain it like this, but that's basically the whole idea. So, let me try to explain it a bit more. These keywords are reserved by Rust developers, so people who are actually working on extending Rust programming language and introducing new functionalities to it, and these keywords still do not have any meaning at the moment. They are still not available to us, so we cannot use them. Our compiler does not know anything about them. The only thing that our compiler knows about them at the moment is to complain about them when it sees us using them as identifiers, so it's not very useful at the moment. But what is the whole idea behind reserved keywords if they do not have any meaning? Why are they restricted to us? Why we cannot use them? And the actual explanation here is very interesting. Rust developers are apparently very smart people, and they know that they are planning to introduce these keywords potentially in future. And if they did not restrict us from using them right now, they might include them and attach some functionalities to these keywords in future, and if we as developers were able to use these keywords as identifiers, as soon as we would update our Rust compiler into the latest version, when these keywords get some actual meaning and functionalities attached to them, our code would break. And that's not a very good practice. The idea here is to restrict us from using these keywords, even though developers are not certain at 100% that they're going to use these keywords in future and give them some actual meaning. But they want to be safe. Again, you can see a few keywords that are in this category listed on the screen. And again, you should be aware of the fact that these keywords have no meaning attached to them, so the compiler would not know what to do with them and how to translate them into machine code, but we are not allowed to be using them. And the final category we have in front of us are going to be weak keywords. These keywords are a bit more difficult to explain. So what makes them difficult to explain is the fact that they are regarded by compiler as keywords only in certain scenarios. In some situations, these keywords might not be regarded as keywords. They can be regarded as regular text that we use. So compiler in Rust, as we mentioned quite a few times, is very smart indeed. It knows that these keywords that I'm mentioning right now are getting their meaning and their value, their actual functionality available only in certain scenarios. And because of the complexity, I think it would be best to talk about this over an example. There is a concept of unions in Rust. And this is a very advanced topic. And I'm even not going to include it in Rust 101 series, because it's a very advanced topic. It contains a lot of very complex concepts attached to it, so I do not think it's going to be necessary for me to explain it within this series. Of course, I am going to explain it, but just as a part of some advanced playlist, some advanced discussions, because it is an advanced topic. So what is the point here? The point is that union has its own keyword, and it's union. Yeah, of course. This keyword has its meaning and is regarded as a keyword only in the scenario where we are declaring a union. And outside of that, it is regarded as a regular word, and you can use it as your identifier, and it will not do anything for compiler. The compiler will not do anything with it when it sees it outside of the declaration of an union. One more tip. I do not think it's a very good idea to name your variables or to use keywords as identifiers in general, because it can potentially bring some unwanted results in some potential future scenarios. So if you can evade the use of keywords as identifiers, I would definitely recommend you and encourage you to do that, just for safety in future. And one more interesting thing, you can see the dyn keyword here, and I added some small text below it. And you can see that it is not any longer a part of weak keywords, because it was moved on 2018 into strict keywords, because that is when developers decided that dyn keywords is going to be a strict keyword, and it's going to be a regular keyword that has its meaning, so to say, in every scenario. They kinda updated the functionalities it does and provides to us, so it made sense to move it to strict keywords. So I just wanted to add this here as a fun fact, so to say, and you should regard it as such. And now, I hope that you remember that I mentioned something before, and that is the fact that we can actually use keywords as identifiers even though Rust compiler does not allow it. And I'm going to cover the way how you can make it happen and be safe. To do this, we need a prefix, and then follow it up by the keyword or the identifier that you want to use for your variable, function, or whatever you like. And I think it would be much better if we cover this in practice, so you can see how the compiler behaves when we use keywords as identifiers, and what we can do to make it allow us to use them. So it is time to jump right into Visual Studio Code. Okay, I have some bad news and some good news. The bad news is we are probably not going to spend too much time in our Visual Studio Code environment in this video. But the good news is we are going to spend some time in Visual Studio Code. So let's get right into it. Of course, we are starting things off by creating a new project and going to our main RS file. And inside of it, we want to create a new function. So not inside main function, but outside of it, but in the same file. And we are going to create a new function, so fn keyword, followed by, we want to call it match, because we want to check if two integers that we are going to send as parameters to this function of ours are matching. If they are the same, we want to return true, and if they're not the same, we want to return false. So basically, the name match makes sense. But when we create it, we get an error. We can see it from error lens right now, and let's build the project and see if the compiler is going to give us something meaningful. And as expected and as usual, the compiler does provide us with a very meaningful suggestion here. It can see that we are trying to use a keyword as identifier. It states that it was expecting identifier and that it stumbled upon a keyword. And that's not allowed, as we already mentioned. And you can see that compiler is already suggesting us to introduce this wildcard called rhash. And that's the prefix that I mentioned that is going to allow us to use keywords as identifiers. So let's try it in action. And after we have added this prefix to our match function, and you can see that it seems to be working perfectly fine. The compiler does not complain any longer. And there is only one thing left, and that is to show you that we have to do exactly the same thing. So again, we need to introduce this prefix to a function call as well. So when you're calling this function we just created, you are not allowed to call it by using keyword match, because the compiler will not know if we mean the keyword match or the function call. So we have to specify our prefix again. Let's do that. And as you can see, everything seems to be working just fine. Now back to you, Marco. Why, thank you, Marco. So I feel like we managed to mention all the essential things about keywords in Rust. And of course, I hope that you learned a bunch of new stuff and that you enjoyed the journey of going through the lesson with me. And if that is the case, I would like to kindly ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel and to like this video, because it would mean a lot to me and the YouTube channel itself. So thank you in advance for that. And right now there is only one thing left, and that is to discuss what we are going to talk about in our next video. And in the next video we are going to cover a very important topic that we already referenced and started kinda explaining, and I'm talking about scopes here. Basically a very important thing to learn and cover. So I hope to see you in that video. And after we covered all of that, there is only one thing left, and that is to wish you an amazing day. Goodbye.